The smoke still rose from the ruins of the Dracari fortress when Sergeant Minu walked through the broken gates. His boots crushed the black ash that covered everything. The battle had lasted 3 days. 3 days of fire, blood, and death. But now it was over. The humans had won. Minu was tired. His muscles hurt. His eyes burned from lack of sleep. But he kept walking because that was what soldiers did. They kept moving forward even when their bodies screamed for rest. Behind him, his squad followed in silence. Corporal Junho limped slightly from a wound on his leg. Medic Sora had blood on her uniform that was not her own. Private Tiwu carried his rifle like it weighed 1,000 pounds. They were all exhausted, but they were alive. That was more than many could say. The local warlord was waiting for them in what remained of the central plaza. His name was Gorath, and he belonged to a species called the Morvani. They were tall creatures with gray skin and 4 arms. Before the Dracari came, the Morvani ruled this planet. Now they were free again because of the humans. Gorath spread all 4 arms wide in greeting. His sharp teeth showed in what Minu hoped was a smile. "Human warrior," Gorath said in broken common speech, "you have given us back our world. The Dracari ran like scared animals because of you. We are grateful." Minu nodded. He did not feel like a hero. He felt like a man who had watched too many friends die. "We were just doing our job," Minu said. "No," Gorath replied. "You did more than duty. You bled for us. You died for us. This demands reward." Minu raised his hand. "That's not necessary. We don't need." But Gorath was already waving to his servants. 2 Morvani came forward carrying something between them. It was a cage made of crystal, no bigger than a shoebox. Inside the cage, something moved. Minu stepped closer and looked inside. His heart stopped. It was a woman, a tiny woman no bigger than his hand. She had pale blue skin and silver hair that fell past her shoulders. Her eyes were large and dark, like pools of midnight water. She wore a simple white dress that looked like it was made from flower petals. She was beautiful in a way that seemed impossible, like a dream made real. But she was also terrified. She pressed herself against the back of the cage, as far from Minu as she could get. Her small body was shaking. "What is this?" Minu asked. His voice came out harder than he intended. Gorath looked confused by the question. "She is Velani, a prize, the finest prize a warrior can receive. The Dracari kept many of them. Now she is yours." Minu felt sick. "She's a person." "Yes," Gorath agreed, not understanding the problem. "A very valuable person. The Velani are rare now. Most were taken by the Dracari long ago. To own one is a great honor." Minu looked at the tiny woman again. She was staring up at him with those huge dark eyes. He saw fear in them, but also something else. Something that looked like she was waiting for the worst to happen, like she had been waiting for it her whole life. "What's your name?" Minu asked her softly. She flinched at his voice. For a long moment she did not answer. Then, in a voice like tiny bells, she said, "Lyra." "Lyra," Minu repeated. "That's a nice name." She did not respond. She just kept watching him, waiting for the cruelty she clearly expected. Gorath stepped forward eagerly. "She is trained. She will not try to escape. She knows her place. She will bring you much pleasure and status among your people." Minu wanted to refuse. Every part of him wanted to hand the cage back and walk away. But he looked at Lyra's face, and he thought about what would happen if he did that. Gorath would give her to someone else. Someone who might not see a person when they looked at her. Someone who might see only a toy. "I'll take her," Minu said quietly. Junho stepped up beside him. "Sergeant, are you sure about this?" Minu took the cage carefully from the Morvani servants. It was lighter than he expected. Lyra weighed almost nothing. "I'm sure," Minu said. They walked back to the transport ship in silence. Minu held the cage gently, trying not to shake it. He could feel Lyra watching him the whole time. She had not moved from the corner of her cage. Inside the transport, Minyu sat down and placed the cage on his lap. The other soldiers found their seats but kept glancing at him. They had questions. He could see it in their faces. But they were good soldiers and they stayed quiet. Sora sat across from him. She leaned forward to look at Lyra through the crystal walls. "She's so small," Sora whispered. "Is she hurt?" "I don't know," Minyu admitted. He looked down at Lyra. "Are you hurt? Do you need medical help?" Lyra shook her head slowly. She still had not relaxed. Her tiny hands were pressed flat against the floor of her cage like she was ready to run, even though there was nowhere to go. "It's okay," Minyu said. "I'm not going to hurt you." Lyra's expression did not change. She had probably heard those words before. They probably meant nothing to her anymore. The transport lifted off the ground and began flying toward the Coalition warship in orbit. Minyu leaned his head back and closed his eyes. He was so tired, but his mind would not stop working. What was he going to do with her? He could not keep a person in a cage, but he also could not just release her into the ship. She was tiny. She could be stepped on. She could fall. 1,000 things could kill her. "Sergeant." The voice was so quiet that Minyu almost missed it. He opened his eyes and looked down. Lyra was standing now. She had moved to the front of the cage, closer to him. Her hands were pressed against the crystal wall. "Yes," Minyu said. "What are you going to do with me?" The question hit him harder than any bullet. She was asking what her fate would be. She was asking if he would be kind or cruel. She was asking if she should hope or give up. Minyu did not have an answer. He did not know what he was going to do. He only knew what he was not going to do. "I'm not going to treat you like property," he said. "I don't know what happens next, but I know that much. You're not a thing, you're a person." Lyra stared at him for a long moment. Her expression was impossible to read. Then she stepped back from the wall and sat down in the corner again. She did not believe him. He could see that clearly. She thought he was lying or playing some game. She had probably seen every trick, heard every lie. Why would she believe a stranger? Minyu did not try to convince her with more words. Words were easy. Anyone could say nice things. He would have to show her instead. The transport docked with the warship Tagu, and Minyu carried the cage through the metal corridors to his quarters. Soldiers stopped and stared as he passed. Word would spread quickly. By tomorrow, everyone would know that Sergeant Minyu had come back from battle with a tiny alien woman in a cage. Let them talk, let them wonder. Minyu did not care what anyone thought. He reached his room and stepped inside. It was small and simple. A bed, a desk, a chair, a window that showed the stars outside. Minyu set the cage on the desk and looked at Lyra. She was watching him with those dark, careful eyes. "This is my room," he said. "You'll be safe here. No one will bother you." Lyra said nothing. Minyu walked to the bed and sat down heavily. The exhaustion was catching up to him now. His whole body felt like it was made of stone. "Get some sleep," he told her. "Tomorrow we'll figure things out." He lay down without taking off his boots. Within seconds, he was asleep. Lyra stayed awake for a long time. She watched the human sleep. She watched his chest rise and fall. She listened to his slow, steady breathing. He had called her a person. He had said he would not treat her like property. She did not believe him. She could not believe him. Believing was dangerous. Believing led to hope, and hope led to pain. But somewhere deep inside her heart, in a place she had tried to kill long ago, a tiny spark flickered to life. Maybe this one was different. Maybe. Minyu woke up to the sound of his alarm. For a moment, he forgot about everything. Then he saw the crystal cage on his desk, and the memories came rushing back. Lyra was still in the corner. She was awake, watching him with tired eyes. He wondered if she had slept at all. Minyu sat up and rubbed his face. His muscles still ached, but the deep exhaustion was gone. A few hours of sleep had helped. He walked to the desk and looked down at Lyra. In the morning light from the window, she looked even smaller than before. She was like a doll, but alive, breathing, thinking. "Good morning," Minyu said. Lyra did not answer. She just kept watching him. Minyu studied the cage. There was a small door on one side held shut by a simple latch. He reached for it. Lyra flinched backward. "I'm going to open this," Minyu said calmly. "You can come out if you want, or you can stay inside, it's your choice." He opened the latch and swung the door wide. Then he stepped back and sat on his bed, giving her space. Lyra did not move. She stared at the open door like it was a trap. "It's not a trick," Minyu said. "I told you last night, you're not property. I'm not going to keep you locked up." Still, she did not move. Minyu sighed. He understood. Trust was not built with words. It was built with time and action. She needed to see that he meant what he said. "I'm going to get breakfast," he told her. "I'll bring something back for you. Do you have any foods you like, or foods you can't eat?" Lyra's eyes widened slightly. It was the first real reaction he had seen from her. "You're asking me," she said. "Yes." "Why?" Minyu frowned. "Because I don't know what Villani eat, and I don't want to give you something that will make you sick." Lyra was quiet for a moment. Then she said in a voice barely louder than a whisper, "Fruit. We eat fruit, and nectar, and some grains. No meat. No, it makes us ill." "Okay, fruit and nectar. I'll see what I can find." Minyu left the room and walked to the ship's mess hall. It was early and only a few soldiers were there. They looked at him with curious eyes. They had heard the rumors. He ignored them and went to the food line. He grabbed his usual breakfast, then looked for fruit. There were some berries from a coalition supply world. They were small and sweet. Perfect. He also grabbed a small cup and filled it with honey. It was the closest thing to nectar he could find. When he returned to his room, Lyra was still in the cage, but she had moved closer to the open door. Progress. Minyu sat at the desk and placed a few berries and a drop of honey near the cage opening. Then he ate his own breakfast and pretended not to watch her. After a few minutes, Lyra slowly stepped out of the cage. She moved carefully, like she expected the floor to disappear beneath her feet. She reached the berries and touched one gently. Then she ate it. Minyu kept eating his own food, acting like nothing special was happening. But inside, he felt a small victory. Over the next few days, Minyu tried to make Lyra comfortable. He asked Sora for help, and the medic was eager to assist. "Her biology is different from ours," Sora explained after running some scans. "She needs certain nutrients we don't have in regular food, but I can make a special mixture for her, something that will keep her healthy." "Thank you," Minyu said. "Sergeant," Sora said quietly, "what are you going to do with her? Long term, I mean." "I don't know yet. For now, I just want her to feel safe." Sora smiled. "You're a good man, Minyu." He did not feel like a good man. He felt like someone trying to fix a problem he did not create. Minyu built a small living space for Lyra on his desk. He used a box lid as a base and covered it with soft cloth. He made tiny furniture from things he found around the ship. A small bed from cotton and cardboard, a table from a bottle cap, a chair from bent wire. When Lyra saw the little space he had made, she stood very still for a long time. "This is for me?" she asked. "Yes, you need somewhere comfortable to sleep. The cage is too cold." "But she stopped. She seemed confused. "Owners don't do this." "I'm not your owner." "Then what are you?" Minyu thought about it. "I don't know, a friend maybe if you want one." Lyra did not answer. But that night, she slept in the little bed he had made instead of the cage, and she did not shake anymore. Days turned into weeks. Lyra slowly began to test her boundaries. One morning, Minyu woke up to find that she had moved his pen to a different spot on the desk. He noticed but said nothing. The next day, she moved his papers. Again, he did not react. Then she started talking back to him. Small things at first, correcting something he said, disagreeing with an opinion. Each time she would watch him carefully, waiting for anger. The anger never came. "Why don't you punish me?" she finally asked one day. Minyu looked up from the report he was reading. "Punish you for what?" "For being difficult, for not obeying, for speaking when I should be silent." Minyu set down his paper. "Lyra, you're a person. Persons have opinions, they disagree, they speak their minds, that's normal. Not for Villani. We are trained to be quiet, to serve, to never make our owners angry." "I already told you, I'm not your owner." "Then why do you keep me here?" It was a good question. Minyu had asked himself the same thing many times. "Because I don't know where else you can go," he admitted. "You're small. The galaxy is dangerous for someone your size. Most species see you as a thing to own. Here, at least, I can protect you." "And what do you want in return?" "Nothing." Lyra shook her head. "Everyone wants something." "Maybe, but not from you, not like that." She studied him with those dark eyes. He could see her mind working, trying to find the lie, trying to find the trap. "My people have a word," she said slowly. "For someone who is kind without reason, we call them ghost hearts, because we don't believe they're real." Minyu smiled sadly. "Maybe I'm a ghost then." Junho and Sora visited often. They were curious about Lyra, and she was curious about them. Junho was awkward at first. He was a big man with rough hands, and he was scared of accidentally hurting her. But Lyra seemed to like him. He told funny stories about his childhood, and sometimes she almost smiled. Sora was gentler. She checked on Lyra's health and brought her new foods to try. She also brought tiny clothes that she had made herself. "You made these?" Lyra asked, holding up a small dress. "I used to sew for my dolls when I was a child," Sora admitted with a blush. "I still remembered how." Lyra touched the fabric carefully. It was soft and warm. No one had ever made something just for her before. "Thank you," she whispered. The squad began to treat Lyra as one of their own. Private Tiwu built her a small chair so she could sit at eye level during meals. Engineer Hana designed a tiny hoverpod that would let her fly around instead of being carried everywhere. "You did this for me?" Lyra asked when she saw the hoverpod. Hana grinned. "Everyone should be able to move on their own. You're part of the crew now." Part of the crew? The words hit Lyra harder than she expected. She had never been part of anything. She had always been apart from everything. A prize, a toy, a thing. But these humans looked at her differently. They saw her. One night, Minyu came back to his room late. He had been in a meeting for hours, planning the next mission. He was tired and stressed. Lyra was waiting on her little bed. She watched him sit down heavily in his chair. "Bad day?" she asked. "Difficult day," he said. "We lost some good people in the last battle. Command wants us to keep pushing forward, but the soldiers are tired." "Do you ever get tired?" Minyu laughed softly. "Every day." "Then why do you keep fighting?" He thought about it. "Because if I don't, someone else has to, and because there are people who need protecting, people who can't fight for themselves." "Like me." "Like many people. The galaxy is full of those who prey on the weak. Someone has to stand against them." Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something she had never said to any owner before. "I'm sorry." Minyu looked at her with surprise. "For what?" "For doubting you, for thinking you were like the others, for waiting for you to hurt me." "You don't need to apologize for that. You were protecting yourself. That's smart." "But you're not like them. You're different." "I'm just human." Lyra shook her head. "No, you're more than that. Your whole species is more than that. I've seen many kinds of aliens in my life. None of them are like humans." Minyu did not know what to say. He had never thought of humans as special. They were just people, struggling to survive like everyone else. "Get some sleep," he finally said. "Tomorrow is another day." Lyra nodded and lay down on her tiny bed. For the first time since she had arrived, She did not wait for Minyu to sleep first. She trusted him enough to close her eyes. And for the first time in years, she did not dream of cages. Minyu watched her sleep for a moment. She looked peaceful. She looked safe. He did not know what the future held. He did not know if he could protect her forever. But he knew one thing. He would try. That was all anyone could do. 3 months passed on the warship Tagu. For Lyra, it was the longest time she had ever spent without fear. She still remembered fear, of course. It lived in her bones like an old sickness. But each day it grew a little smaller. Each day the humans proved again that they were not like the others. Minyu had given her freedom, but more than that, he had given her purpose. It started small. One night during a mission briefing, Lyra heard something that the humans missed. The enemy transmission had a hidden layer, a second message buried beneath the first. Her people, the Villani, had exceptional hearing. They could detect sounds that other species could not. "There's something else," she said from her hoverpod. "A code. They're using a code." The officers looked at her with surprise. No one had expected her to speak in a military meeting. Minyu leaned forward. "What kind of code?" "Numbers hidden in the background noise. Coordinates, maybe." The communications officer checked. Lyra was right. The Dracari had hidden the location of a supply base in the transmission. It was a technique no one had seen before. After that, Lyra became part of the intelligence team. Her ears could hear what machines could not. Her mind could find patterns that others missed. The Villani had once been great scholars, studying the universe and all its secrets. That knowledge still lived in Lyra, waiting to be used. "You're amazing," Sora told her one day. "You've helped us win 3 battles this month." Lyra felt warmth spread through her chest. It was a strange feeling. Pride. She had not felt it since she was a child, before the Dracari came for her people. "I just listen," she said modestly. "You do more than listen. You think, you analyze, you save lives." Saving lives. Lyra had never imagined she could do such a thing. She had always been the one who needed saving. The crew of the Tagu grew protective of their tiny advisor. Private Tiwu spent weeks crafting a small suit for her, made from the same material as human combat armor. It was too small to stop a bullet, but it would protect her from falls and heat and cold. "Just in case," Tiwu said gruffly when he gave it to her. "You're important to us now, can't have you getting hurt." Engineer Hana upgraded her hoverpod, adding better controls and a small shield generator. Now Lyra could fly faster and farther than ever before. "I added a communication link too," Hana explained, "so you can always reach us, even if something goes wrong." Lyra did not know what to say. No one had ever worked so hard to keep her safe. No one had ever cared enough to try. "Thank you," she managed. "All of you. I don't understand why you do this." Junho laughed. "Because you're family now, little one. That's what families do." Family? The word was heavy with meaning. Lyra had lost her family long ago. The Dracari had taken them, scattered them across the galaxy like seeds in the wind. She had been alone ever since. But maybe she was not alone anymore. One day, the Tagu engaged a Dracari warship in battle. Lyra watched from the command deck, floating in her hoverpod near the main screen. She had seen battles before, but always from a cage, always as a prize waiting to change hands. This was different. This time she was watching her friends fight. The battle was brutal. The Dracari ship was larger and more powerful. Explosions rocked the Tagu, and alarms screamed through the corridors. Lyra could hear crew members shouting, coordinating, fighting for their lives. And then she heard something else. "There are escape pods launching from the enemy ship," she said quickly. "Small ones, not soldiers." The captain turned to her. "What do you mean?" "The pods are too small for adults. I think they're children, Dracari children." Everyone on the deck went silent. The Dracari were the enemy. They had killed humans. They had enslaved entire species, and yet their children were now floating helplessly in space. The captain looked at Minu. "Sergeant, your opinion." Minu did not hesitate. "We rescue them." "They're Drakari," another officer said. "Their parents have killed our people." "Children don't choose their parents," Minu replied firmly. "They didn't start this war. They're just kids." The captain nodded slowly. "Launch rescue shuttles. Bring those pods in safely." Lyra watched as human soldiers risked their lives to save enemy children. The Drakari ship was still firing. The pods were in a dangerous zone, but the humans flew in anyway, grabbing each small pod and bringing it back to safety. When the battle ended, there were 17 Drakari children on the Tagu. They were scared and confused, crying for parents who would never come. The human medics treated them gently, giving them food and water and soft blankets. Lyra flew her hoverpod down to the medical bay. She saw Minu kneeling beside a young Drakari girl who was shaking with fear. "It's okay," Minu said softly. "No one is going to hurt you here. You're safe." The girl did not understand his words, but she seemed to understand his tone. Slowly, her shaking stopped. Lyra landed her hoverpod on a nearby table. Minu noticed her and walked over. "Why?" she asked him. "Why what?" "Why save them? The Drakari took everything from my people. They killed, they enslaved, they destroyed, and you saved their children." Minu sat down beside her. He looked tired. He always looked tired. "Because hate has to stop somewhere," he said. "If we kill their children, we become what they are. We become monsters. And then what's the point of fighting at all?" "But they would never do the same for human children." "Probably not, but that's their choice. This is ours. We can only control what we do, Lyra, and I choose not to let innocent children die, no matter who their parents are." Lyra thought about this for a long time. In her world, the world she had known before Minu, such mercy would be seen as weakness. Enemies were enemies. You destroyed them or they destroyed you. But humans were different. They had a strange code, a belief that some things mattered more than winning. They called it humanity, though the word meant different things in different contexts. She was beginning to understand it now. Humanity was not about being human. It was about being kind even when the galaxy was cruel. It was about protecting the weak even when no one was watching. It was about choosing to be better, even when it was hard. "You call me one of your crew," Lyra said, "but I'm not human." Minu smiled. "You don't have to be human to have humanity." That night, Lyra made a decision. She would stop being a survivor. She would start being something more. She went to Minu with a request. "I want to help more," she said. "Not just listening, I want to fight." Minu raised an eyebrow. "Fight? Lyra, you're 15 centimeters tall." "I know, but there are things I can do that big people cannot. I can go places you cannot reach. I can see things you cannot see. I can be useful." "You're already useful." "I want to be more than useful. I want to matter." Minu studied her for a long moment. He saw something in her eyes that had not been there before. Fire, determination, purpose. "Okay," he said finally. "We'll find a way together." And they did. In the weeks that followed, Lyra trained with the squad. She learned to use her size as an advantage. She could sneak into enemy ships through ventilation shafts. She could plant small devices that disrupted communications. She could gather intelligence that no one else could reach. The crew stopped seeing her as someone to protect. They started seeing her as someone who protected them. "Our little warrior," Junho called her with pride. "The tiny terror," Tiwu joked. But to Lyra, the best name was the one she gave herself. She was no longer a prize. She was no longer a victim. She was no longer alone. She was Lyra of the Tagu, and she had found her family. Then one day, everything changed. The communications officer burst into the mess hall during dinner. His face was pale with shock. "We intercepted a Drakari transmission," he said. High priority, maximum encryption. What does it say? The captain asked. They've found it, sir. They've found Velar Prime. The room went silent. Everyone looked at Lyra. Velar Prime, the hidden homeworld of the Velani people, the last place where her kind lived free. For centuries, its location had been the most guarded secret in the galaxy. But now the Dracari knew, and they were coming. They're sending a full invasion fleet, the communications officer continued. They plan to capture every Velani on the planet, all of them. Lyra felt the world tilt beneath her, her people, the ones she had never met, the ones she had only dreamed about. They were in danger. And there was nothing she could do to stop it. Or was there? She looked at Minu. He was already looking at her. In his eyes, she saw the same fire she had felt when she decided to stop being a victim. We have to help them, she said. Minu nodded slowly. Yes, we do. The captain shook his head. Velar Prime has no strategic value. Command will never approve a rescue mission. Then we don't ask for approval, Minu said. The room fell silent again. What Minu was suggesting was dangerous. It could end his career. It could end his life. But he did not hesitate, because somewhere in the galaxy, a small and peaceful people were about to lose everything. And if humans did not help them, no one would. Lyra felt tears forming in her eyes. She had thought she understood humanity. She had been wrong. This was humanity. This was what it truly meant. And she would never forget it. The shuttle dropped out of hyperspace above Velar Prime. Through the window, Lyra saw her homeworld for the first time. It was beautiful beyond words. Blue oceans covered most of the surface, dotted with thousands of green islands. The sky was filled with clouds that shimmered like silver in the sunlight. This was where her people had lived for thousands of years. This was the place she had dreamed about in her darkest moments, and now she was finally here. But there was no time for wonder. The Dracari fleet would arrive in less than 12 hours. Beginning descent, the pilot announced. Minu sat beside Lyra, his face calm but his eyes sharp. He had brought his best people on this mission. Junho, Sara, Tiwu, Hana, and 10 other soldiers from the Tagu. They had all volunteered when they heard what Minu was planning. You know this could end your career, the captain had warned him. I know, Minu had replied. Some things matter more than careers. The captain had been silent for a long moment. Then he had done something unexpected. He had handed Minu a set of coordinates. The fastest route to Velar Prime, the captain said. I'll tell command our communications are damaged. That should buy you some time. Sir, go save those people and come back alive. Now they were descending through clouds, heading toward the main Velani settlement. Lyra's heart was pounding. She would finally meet her own kind. She would see others like her. But what would they think of her? She had lived among outsiders her whole life. She had been a prize, a possession. Would they accept her? The shuttle landed in a clearing near the settlement. When the doors opened, Minu was the first to step out. Then he stopped. They were surrounded. Hundreds of Velani stood in the trees around them. They were all small like Lyra, but they carried tiny weapons that glowed with strange light. Their faces were hard with fear and suspicion. Giants, one of them said. Why have giants come to our world? Minu raised his hand slowly, showing he was not reaching for his weapon. We came to help. The Dracari are coming. They know where you are. The Velani murmured among themselves. Fear spread through the crowd like ripples in water. How do we know you are not with them? A Velani elder demanded. How do we know this is not a trick? Before Minu could answer, Lyra flew her hoverpod forward. She moved into the open space between the humans and her people. Because I am with them, she said. The Velani gasped. They stared at her with shock and disbelief. You are Velani, the elder said, but you come with giants, with outsiders. Yes, I was taken from our people when I was young. I was a prize passed from owner to owner. I knew only cruelty for most of my life. Lyra paused, her voice shaking slightly. Then I met them. These humans, they freed me. They treated me as an equal. They gave me a home. Impossible. No species treats Vellani as equals. Humans do. Lyra looked back at Minu. He was watching her with quiet pride. I know it sounds impossible. I did not believe it either at first, but I have lived with them for months. I have seen who they are. They risk their lives to save strangers. They show mercy to their enemies. They traveled across the galaxy to warn you, knowing they might die in the attempt. The elder studied her for a long moment. Then he looked at Minu. Why? The elder asked. Why would you risk everything for us? We have nothing to offer you. We are small and weak. We have no armies, no weapons, no resources. Minu stepped forward slowly, keeping his hands visible. You are people, that's enough. The elder blinked, that's enough. Yes. Silence stretched across the clearing. The Vellani looked at each other, uncertain. They had never heard such words from a giant before. Finally the elder nodded. We will listen. Tell us what you know. The next hours were chaos. Minu and his team shared everything they had learned about the Dracari fleet. The Vellani leaders listened and asked questions. Plans were made, discarded, and made again. The Vellani knew their world better than anyone. They knew every cave, every tunnel, every hidden place. They had survived this long by being invisible, and they would use that skill again. We can evacuate the children and elderly to the deep caves, the elder explained. The Dracari will not find them there, but someone must stay above to fight. We'll fight, Minu said. That's why we're here. You cannot hold against an entire fleet. Maybe not, but we can slow them down. We can buy time for coalition reinforcements to arrive. If they arrive, Lyra thought. Command had not approved this mission. There was no guarantee that help was coming. But she did not say this. Hope was fragile enough without her crushing it. The squad set up defenses around the main settlement. Tiwu and Hana worked together, creating traps and barriers. Junho organized the Vellani fighters who wanted to stay and help. Sara prepared a medical station for the wounded who would surely come. Lyra flew everywhere, translating between humans and Vellani, answering questions, solving problems. She had never worked so hard in her life. She had never felt so alive. As the sun began to set, the elder approached her. You have done much for us today, he said, but I sense there is something you have not said. Lyra looked at the old man. His face was lined with age and wisdom. I am scared, she admitted. I thought I had accepted that I might die, but now that the moment is close, I find that I want to live. The elder smiled gently. That is not weakness, that is wisdom. The dead cannot protect anyone. But I cannot run, not when my people need me, not when my friends are fighting. Then do not run, fight, and if the worst comes, face it with courage. The elder took her small hand in his. You have brought us hope today, child. Whatever happens tomorrow, we will remember that. Night fell. The Vellani who were not fighting retreated to the caves. The settlement became quiet, filled only with those who would stand against the darkness. Minu found Lyra sitting on a tree branch, looking up at the stars. Can't sleep, he asked. No, you. Soldiers learn to sleep anywhere, but tonight my mind won't stop. Lyra nodded. I keep thinking about what happens if we fail. We won't fail. You can't know that. Minu climbed up to sit beside her on the branch. His weight barely moved it. You're right, he said. I can't know, but I believe that's different. Believe in what? In my squad. In you. In the fact that good things are worth fighting for even if we might lose. Lyra was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question that had been haunting her for months. Why did you take me from that cage, Minu? The truth. He thought about it. Because when I looked at you, I saw a person who had given up hope, and I couldn't walk away from that. I don't know if I can explain it better. Something in my heart just refused to let you suffer. That's a dangerous way to live. Maybe, but it's the only way I know. They sat together in comfortable silence. The stars wheeled overhead. Somewhere in the darkness, an enemy fleet was racing toward them. At dawn they came. The Dracari ships filled the sky like a swarm of angry insects. Lyra counted 20, then 30, then lost track. There were too many. "Here we go," Junho muttered, gripping his weapon. The first landing craft touched down outside the settlement. Dracari soldiers poured out, tall and fierce, their weapons blazing. The humans met them with fire of their own. The battle was intense from the first moment. The Dracari had numbers, but the humans had position and determination. They held the line, pushing back wave after wave of attackers. Lyra flew through the chaos in her hoverpod, scouting enemy movements and warning the defenders. Her tiny size made her almost impossible to hit. She was everywhere and nowhere, a ghost on the battlefield. But the Dracari kept coming. For every soldier who fell, two more took his place. Slowly, inevitably, the defenders were pushed back. "We need reinforcements," Sora shouted, blood on her face as she dragged a wounded soldier to safety. "They're not coming," Tiwu replied grimly. Minyu rallied his people again and again. He was tireless, fearless, always where the fighting was thickest. Lyra watched him save 3 soldiers from an ambush, then turn and charge into another group of enemies. Then a Dracari grenade landed near the command post. The explosion threw Minyu into the air. He landed hard and did not get up. "Minyu!" Lyra screamed. She flew to him as fast as her hoverpod would go. He was alive but badly hurt. Blood soaked his uniform. His eyes were unfocused. "Lyra," he whispered. "The council chamber, the Vellani elders, they're still there. You have to." "I'm not leaving you." "Please, they trusted us. We can't let them down." Lyra looked at the battle raging around her. The humans were falling back. The Dracari were advancing. In minutes, they would overrun everything. She made a decision. She activated her communication link, broadcasting on all frequencies. Every ship in orbit, every soldier on the ground, every receiver in the system would hear her voice. "This is Lyra of the Vellani speaking to anyone who can hear me. The Dracari are attacking our homeworld. Humans came to save us even though they had no reason to. They are dying for us right now. We need help, please. If there is anyone out there who believes in freedom, who believes in protecting the innocent, come to Velar Prime. Help us." She did not know if anyone was listening. She did not know if help would come. But she had to try. The message repeated as she stayed by Minyu's side. Sora arrived and began treating his wounds. The battle raged on. Explosions shook the ground. And then through the smoke and fire, Lyra heard something. A new sound, ships, not Dracari ships. She looked up and saw them. Dozens of vessels dropping out of hyperspace, coalition ships, and others. Ships she did not recognize from species she had never met. They had heard her, they had come. The tide turned in an instant. Fresh fighters joined the battle. The Dracari, suddenly outnumbered, began to retreat. Their fleet, faced with overwhelming opposition, turned and fled into hyperspace. It was over. Lyra collapsed beside Minyu, exhausted beyond measure. The old soldier opened his eyes and managed a weak smile. "Told you," he whispered, "we wouldn't fail." Lyra laughed through her tears. "You're an idiot." "I know, but I'm your idiot." And for the first time in her life, Lyra believed that everything would be okay. Minyu woke up slowly. His body felt heavy like it was made of stone. Pain pulsed through him with every heartbeat, but he was alive. That was something. He opened his eyes and saw white walls, a medical bay. The soft hum of machines surrounded him. And there on his pillow, curled up like a tiny cat, was Lyra. She was asleep. Her silver hair was messy and her small face looked exhausted. But she was there, right beside him, close enough that he could feel her tiny warmth against his cheek. Minyu smiled and closed his eyes again. He did not want to wake her. A few minutes later, the door opened and Sara walked in. When she saw that Minyu was awake, her face broke into a huge grin. "Sergeant, you're back with us." "How long was I out?" Minyu asked, his voice rough. 3 days. You almost died twice. Whatever you're made of, it's stronger than most." Lyra stirred at the sound of voices. She sat up quickly, blinking sleep from her eyes. When she saw Minyu watching her, she froze. "You're awake," she said. "So are you. Were you here the whole time?" She looked away. "Someone had to watch over you. The others were busy." Sara laughed. "She's lying. She refused to leave your side. We had to bring her food because she wouldn't move." Lyra's blue cheeks darkened with embarrassment. "That's not. I was just." "Thank you," Minyu said simply. Lyra met his eyes. Something passed between them, not words, something deeper. "You saved my people," she said quietly. "You almost died for them. Thanking me seems strange after that. You saved us too. Your broadcast brought reinforcements. Without that, we would have lost. Then we saved each other." Minyu nodded. "I guess we did." The recovery was slow. Minyu spent 2 weeks in the medical bay before he could walk again. During that time, the galaxy changed around him. News of the Battle of Velar Prime spread across every system. The story of a human squad defying orders to save a small alien species captured the imagination of billions. People who had never heard of the Velani suddenly knew their name. People who had never thought about humans suddenly respected them. And Lyra's broadcast became famous. Her words were repeated on news channels and social media. If there is anyone out there who believes in freedom, who believes in protecting the innocent, come to Velar Prime. It became a symbol of hope for oppressed species everywhere. Coalition Command was furious at first. Minyu had disobeyed orders. He had taken a ship without permission. He had started a battle that could have sparked a wider war. But the public loved him. The Velani loved him. Even other species sent messages of support. Command realized that punishing Minyu would cause more problems than it solved. In the end, they gave him a medal instead. "Politics," the captain said with a wry smile when he pinned it on Minyu's chest. "Sometimes doing the right thing actually works out." The Velani offered Minyu something even greater than a medal. The Elder Council gathered in a formal ceremony, wearing their finest robes. Hundreds of Velani watched as the eldest of them spoke. "Minyu of Earth," the elder said, "you came to us as a stranger. You risked everything for people you had never met. You showed us that the galaxy is not only filled with cruelty. There is kindness too, if we know where to look." He held up a small crystal, glowing with inner light. "We offer you the highest honor our people can give, citizenship of Velar Prime and the title of Guardian of the Small. From this day forward, you are one of us. Our home is your home. Our people are your people." Minyu knelt so he was closer to eye level with the elder. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes, that is all we ask." "Then yes, I accept, with honor." The Velani cheered. It was a strange sound like wind chimes in a storm, but it was beautiful. Later, the elder approached Lyra privately. "You have done more for our people than you know," he told her. "Your broadcast woke the galaxy. Because of you, the Dracari lost their grip on many worlds. Other enslaved Velani are demanding freedom, citing your example." Lyra felt tears forming in her eyes. "I did not do it alone." "No, but you found the courage to speak when silence was easier. That matters." The elder paused. "The council wants you to join us. We need leaders who understand both our world and the world outside. You could help guide our people into this new era." Lyra was silent for a long moment. It was a great honor, a chance to be part of something important, a chance to come home at last. But when she thought about it, she realized something surprising. She was already home. "Thank you," she said carefully. but my place is on the Tagu with my crew, with my family." The elder studied her face. Then he smiled gently. "The humans have truly changed you." "No, they showed me who I always was. I just needed help seeing it." 1 year passed. The galaxy continued to turn. Wars were fought and ended. Species rose and fell. But some things changed forever. The Velani were no longer silent. Across hundreds of worlds, those who had been kept as prizes and pets began to speak up. They demanded freedom. They demanded respect. And slowly, painfully, things began to change. A Velani Rights Convention was signed by 30 species. It declared that the Velani were sentient beings with full legal rights, not property to be bought and sold. It was not perfect. Many species refused to sign, but it was a start. And everywhere the change happened, people told the same story. The story of a human soldier and a tiny alien woman. The story of an unexpected friendship that changed everything. Minyu now commanded a new unit, the first joint Human-Velani Special Operations Team. It was small but effective. Humans provided strength and firepower. Velani provided intelligence and infiltration. Together, they were unstoppable. Lyra served as Minyu's strategic advisor and ambassador. She flew beside him in every mission, her hoverpod upgraded with the latest technology. She was no longer the frightened creature in a crystal cage. She was a warrior, a leader, a voice for her people. The squad had grown too. Junho was promoted to lieutenant. Sara ran the medical division. Tiwu trained new recruits. Hana designed equipment that other units begged to borrow. They were family, bound by something stronger than blood. One evening, Minyu stood on the observation deck of their new ship, the Unity. Stars stretched endlessly before him. The galaxy was vast and old, full of wonders and horrors beyond counting. Lyra flew up to join him. She landed her hoverpod on the railing and stepped out, standing at her full 15 centimeters of height. "The Velani delegation arrives at the Galactic Senate tomorrow," she said. "For the first time in history, we will speak as free citizens." "Are you nervous?" "Terrified but also excited. This is what we fought for." Minyu nodded. "You'll do great, you always do." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. So much had changed since that day on Korath 7, when a tired soldier had been handed a cage with a tiny woman inside. Neither of them could have imagined ending up here. "Minyu," Lyra said softly. "Yes. Thank you for everything, for freeing me, for believing in me, for teaching me that kindness still exists in the universe." Minyu smiled. "You don't have to thank me. You earned everything you have. I just opened a door." "You did more than that. You showed me what humanity means, not the species, the idea, the belief that every person matters, that compassion is stronger than cruelty, that we can be better than the darkness around us." "I just did what anyone would do." Lyra shook her head. "No, most would have left me in that cage. Most would have seen a prize, not a person. You saw me, Minyu, really saw me. Do you know how rare that is?" Minyu was quiet for a moment. Then he reached out and offered his palm. Lyra stepped onto it, and he raised her up to eye level. "I saw someone worth knowing," he said. "Someone brave and smart and kind, trapped in a situation she didn't deserve. I couldn't walk away from that. I never could." "Promise me something." "What?" "Promise me that no matter what happens, no matter how the galaxy changes, you will always be this person. The one who sees people when others see things. The one who fights for those who cannot fight for themselves." "I promise." Lyra reached out and pressed her tiny hand against his cheek. It was a gesture she had made before, but this time it felt different. This time it felt like a vow. "They once called us prizes," she said softly. "Now they call us allies." Minyu smiled. "I just called you a friend." Lyra laughed, a sound like tiny bells ringing in the darkness. "Yes, that was the beginning of everything." The next day, the Unity escorted the Velani delegation to the Galactic Senate. It was the largest gathering of species in a century. Billions watched across the galaxy as a small platform rose to the speaker's position. On that platform stood a single Velani woman, dressed in silver and blue. Her voice, amplified across the massive chamber, reached every corner of known space. "I am Lyra of the Velani," she began. "Once I was called a prize. Once I was kept in a cage, sold from owner to owner, treated as a thing without worth. I knew only fear and silence." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Then I met humans. They showed me that the galaxy is not only cruel. They taught me that freedom is not given. It is claimed. They fought beside me, not because they had to, but because they believed it was right." Her eyes found Minu in the crowd. He was watching her with quiet pride. "Today, the Velani take their place among the free peoples of the galaxy. We are small, but we are not weak. We are few, but we are not forgotten. And we stand here because one human soldier looked at a tiny woman in a cage and saw something worth saving." She raised her head high. "We are Velani, and we will never be prizes again." The chamber erupted in applause. Species who had never agreed on anything cheered together. History was being made, and everyone knew it. Later, after the speeches and ceremonies, Minu found Lyra sitting alone on a balcony overlooking the celebration. She looked peaceful in a way he had never seen before. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Free," she said simply. "For the first time in my life, completely free." "What will you do now?" Lyra smiled and flew up to land on his shoulder, her favorite spot. "The same thing I always do," she said. "Stay with my family, fight for what's right, and try to make the galaxy a little better than I found it." Minu laughed. "That sounds like a good plan. I learned from the best." They stood together, watching the lights of celebration dance across the station. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and dangers they could not yet imagine. But they would face it together. A soldier and a tiny woman, an unlikely friendship that changed everything. The beginning of a new story. And in the end, that was all that mattered.